In today's episode, we're going to be talking with a med student all about the process that she had to go through in order to get into medical school. So, if you're thinking about medical school, if you're thinking about graduate school, if you're thinking about something that's long-term, a long-term goal, this interview just might help you understand the process and the steps involved into getting into a program like that. Hello, everybody. This is Miki Calderon, my daughter, and I wanted to bring her on board today so we could talk about goals, and specifically the goal of getting into medical school. So, Miki, why don't you introduce yourself, tell everybody a little bit about yourself and what you're doing and where you live and all that good stuff.
Sure. So I'm Miki. I am currently living in Boston, and I am a second year medical student. So I've just finished all of my preclinical work, and I am about to start studying for my board exam. Before starting med school, I worked as a nurse for a few years and took some time off to move to Germany to be with my husband. And so I've definitely had an interesting road to get to where I am today, but here I am.
So in all the episodes, I've kind of been focusing on goals, right? Because, we hit the new year and a lot of people make their New Year's resolutions. A lot of people, statistically, there was a study done by Strava with they have like 31.5 million users, and most people by the second week of January drop off on their goals, right? They use their data to figure that out. And I'm hoping that people stay on their goals. But specifically today, I thought it'd be a great idea to talk about your goal to go to medical school. So when did you decide that you wanted to go to medical school? And talk about that. What was the process of that? How did that just happen?
I don't know that there was like a single point in time where I decided all of a sudden, actually, I want to go to med school. I think it was a process and like starting to think about it, and then like deciding that I wanted to go, and then actually deciding to commit to it. So I think there were like multiple phases in like the creation of this goal, if that makes sense. I think the first time I started thinking about it, I mean, even in high school, I had like never thought that I would go to medical school. It was just like not on my radar at all. I think the first time I started thinking about it was when my advisor in college, I had met with her because I was considering nursing school, and she told me, why not just go to medical school if you want to go into, medicine? Like why nursing? Why not medical school? So I think that's the first time that idea was brought up to me. And at the time I like just couldn't wrap my head around the number of years of school and the number of years of training and then like the cost of everything. So I just decided to go to nursing school. But yeah, I mean, that goal was like many years in the making.
Yeah, I remember once you told me like you came home from when you were working at St. Luke's as a nurse, and you said, I can't believe doctors get paid so much and they don't do any of the work, and the nurses are doing all the work. I should become a doctor. I kind of remember you saying that.
Yeah, I think I definitely felt at the time that I was doing a lot of work. I think now that I'm starting to be on the other side of things, like, working my way to becoming a doctor, I now realize that doctors do a lot of work that I didn't see physically, like as a nurse. Like nurses do a lot of the bedside care and like charting everything we do. Like it gets busy, especially with multiple patients, but doctors, as well as like giving care, like creating like a care plan and like prescribing medications and diagnosing patients, they also have to deal with a lot of like insurance stuff, and that takes a lot of time. So I think that's a side of it that I never saw when I was working as a nurse. So everyone works really hard.
So you decided to become a doctor, right? And this is a long-term goal. This is not like, oh, like my goal. I want to run 4 10Ks a week. That's easy. It's kind of it's like a long-term goal, but it's not so detail, like it's just me putting on my shoes and running. But to go to
Hmm.
medical school, I mean, there was so many hurdles that you have to jump through. There's so many obstacles also, like, financing it and all that stuff. So
Hmm.
talk a little bit about um, all the hurdles that you had to go through. Once you
Hmm.
decided, you said, I want to go to medical school, and that became your goal. What
Hmm.
was the process that you had to go through, the first steps that you had to take in order to achieve that goal?
Yeah, so I think the very first thing was even qualifying to apply to medical school. And so the first two big hurdles were like, one, I had to take all of the prerequisite classes in
So
order
you had to
to
go.
apply.
So you had to go back to school.
So I had to go back to school before I could even apply to medical school. And that included taking like really basic, I mean, I say basic, they're like really hard classes, but like basic science classes that I had never taken before, like chemistry, physics, uh, biology. I think a lot of medical schools now are starting to require biochemistry too, which I never took, but that's another one. So that takes all of that takes about a year of full-time schoolwork. A lot of people that choose to go back to school to take those classes choose to take 2 years on it so that they can do well. They're all very difficult classes, especially if you don't have a science background. And then the second thing is taking the entrance exam for medical school. So it's called the MCAT. It's like I think it's like 8 hours, an 8 hour test that you basically covers everything, all the classes that you've taken, up to that point. So like the chemistry, the biochemistry, biology, physics, all of that is on this exam as well.
That is grueling. I mean, that is like, I mean, that's not just thinking about that exam is hard, huh? And then you had
Yeah.
graduated with a nursing degree and you still had to
Mhm.
go back to school to take those science classes to get into medical school. That's even harder.
Yeah.
So what got you through those? I mean, that sounds intense. What helped you get through those periods? I mean, I know you having a
Um,
great dad helps a little bit, but just kidding. Just kidding. But
of course, of
yeah.
course. Uh, what got
And
me through it?
and yeah, and so let me point this out that I did not pay for anything, right? So
Yeah.
most a lot of kids, they're very very fortunate and they get their parents pay for that stuff, but I didn't. So I didn't help you at all. So
Mhm.
that's even a larger obstacle that you have in front of you. So how did you manage all that?
Um, I think I've always liked being a student and I've always liked school. I think that's important when you're going through something this long that requires so much school. Like you have to be able to enjoy it even though it's hard and even though it's stressful and like even though you have to perform well like continuously. You can't slack off. Like once you decide that you want to do this, you can't slack off. So yeah, I think it's one, you've got to like school. That's just like a part of the road. I think you've got to enjoy learning. And so I think some people enjoy learning, but they don't enjoy learning in a school environment. So I think having those two things are really important. Um, I also, this one's kind of like real talk, but I took out about $40,000 of loans, $60,000 including living expenses,
Wow.
to do my 1 year post-bac program
Yeah.
to take all of those classes. So I had never borrowed that much money in such a short amount of time. And I think that really puts the pressure on. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
I've taken out this much money. Like it has to mean something. I have to work hard. And there's nothing like crippling debt to get you up in the morning and working hard. So yeah.
Yeah, that's intense. That's a lot of money. Yeah.
It's a lot of money. I mean, and at the end of the day, like, it's going to be fine.
Yeah.
And a lot of medical students take out a lot of loans, way more than $60,000. But I think that it just requires you to push on and work hard so that you can pay it all off later without having any issues.
So you got into a pre-med program you borrowed $60,000 to pay for that and your living expenses for that year, and then you graduated, right?
Yeah, it's
But
like a
you're
certificate program.
but you're still not in medical school, so now you've got to take the 8-hour MCAT, and then you also have to apply to medical schools.
Hmm.
So how talk about that process, and kind of walk us through that process so that people know what it's like.
So after finishing all my coursework, I spent about a month studying for the MCAT. A lot of it was reviewing the things I had learned in the past year, but it was pretty like crammed time wise because I didn't want to take more than 1 year off. So you have to apply about a year in advance. And so you have to have met all of the requirements, including the MCAT, by the time you submit your applications. So I took about a month to study for the MCAT. I took the MCAT, and at the same time, I was applying to medical schools. And I ended up applying to about 17 or 18 medical schools. So yeah, I mean it's a big job to just apply. Like you have to write a statement of purpose and you have to fill out a whole application, and every single school asks that you also complete a secondary set of essays that are specific to the school. So it is pretty time consuming.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of work. And then so did you use any kind of apps or any kind of software to help you? Because I mean, to me, it sounds like you've got a lot of different kinds of deadlines, a lot of different kinds of yeah, deadlines that you have to meet. How did you keep track of all
Hmm.
that stuff? Because you said, like you mentioned,
Oh. Hmm.
you had to apply for everything a year ahead of time, and then you had to apply for your pre-med program, and then you've got to take the MCAT. You've got so many dates
Hmm.
involved, and then I'm sure all 17 medical schools had different deadlines, right? They had different date
Hmm.
deadlines for applications. So how did you use anything to keep track of all that?
Um, I used like a Google Sheets. So very simple. Like I didn't use any apps or any programs on my phone. I didn't even use a calendar or anything. I just used a Google Sheets that
Mhm.
I like in the very left hand column, I had like a list of all of the schools that I applied to. And then, each school has their own unique link for their secondary application. So I would like copy and paste the link on there. I would have my like username and password all on one Google Sheet so that I could keep track of everything. I also had a column with the date that I received the secondary application. And then their recommendation is that you submit it within 2 weeks and sooner if possible. So, I would always keep track of like the date that I received it so that I could get it back to the school within 2 weeks. So I think that's like a pretty simple way to keep track of all the schools that I applied to. Um, yeah.
And I'm just curious. So you're in medical school now. Out of all of the students, what percentage are like medical school right after their 4 years of college, and what
Mhm.
percentage are like they took a few years to work, then they decided to go to medical school?
That's a great question. I don't have a number
Hmm.
for you, but I do know that the trend is that more and more students are taking time off after their undergraduate degree. So that's, after their 4 year degree, a lot more students are taking time off. Whether that's a year or 2 years. I think, the average age of med students is now maybe 24 or 25, somewhere
Hmm.
around there. Maybe that's a little high, but the average age of an incoming medical student is
Yeah.
going up. So that
Yeah.
means students are taking more and more time off in between. Um, I took about I took 4 years off
Yeah.
in
But you
between.
worked as a nurse for 4 years, well, for 3 years, right? You worked as a nurse for 3 years, and then you lived in Germany for a year, but you still volunteered.
Yeah, I,
Yeah.
I want to say I worked for about 2 years actually, and
Okay.
spent 1 year doing the post back and then 1 year volunteering and things like
Okay.
that.
Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Now, is there anybody in medical school that's in their 50s? Have you seen any like?
There are actually, not in my class,
Uh,
but I've heard I've heard stories of, older medical students that
uh-huh.
decide to have like a midlife career change and go
Uh-huh.
into med school. So it's never too late.
So yeah,
It's never
so
too
the
late.
age doesn't matter. I mean,
Age doesn't matter.
you think people in their 50s their brain isn't as good anymore, but I guess, it's doesn't matter.
I don't think that's true. I think it's more that people are unwilling to make such a big change so late in life. And I
Yeah.
think it requires you to be really open minded and try new things, especially when it comes to like studying and like learning how to be a student again. I think many people in their 40s and 50s are like at the height of their career. And
Yeah.
so to stop everything and to go back to school is a really big decision.
I was just joking because I'm in my 50s, Mickey. I was just like,
Oh, well, you could go back to med school if you want to. I don't know if you could deal with being a student again for that long, but
I
it's
know,
always
but
a possibility.
okay, so you've so far, you made that goal to become a doctor when you were, I guess, what you were already working as a nurse when you made that goal, right?
When I think no, well, yeah. When I like committed, like the decision to,
Yeah.
the committed to that decision,
Yeah.
I was in Germany.
Okay.
So I
So
was
you
like
were
24.
so you were
I
in
was 24.
Germany, and then from Germany to getting into medical school was about 2 or 3 years, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
Okay. So it took let's say 2 or 3 years for you to attain that goal of getting into medical school. That's pretty long term. Now and then now you're in your third year of medical school, right?
Almost. I'm
You
still, yeah,
okay, so
at
you're
the
going to
tail
go
end of my second year.
so you're at the tail end of your second year. Medical school is 4 years long,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Now, do you have once you graduate from medical school, have you already come up with a goal that you'd like to achieve once you graduate?
Yeah, I mean, so I think my big goal is to match into a residency program.
Uh-huh.
And so that's where you start specializing in whatever field of medicine that you want to specialize in. And that training is anywhere from 3 to 7 years, depending on the track that you choose.
Hmm.
So I'm not sure what I want to do yet, but whatever that ends up being, my big goal is to match into a residency.
Okay. So
Hmm.
even though and this is the cool part because I think people sometimes they think they need to know right away what they want to be, but you
Hmm.
don't have to know. You can make those small steps. I mean, this is a long-term goal, but you can make like baby steps, right? You take a step. I want to go to medical school. Then once you're in medical school, while you're in medical school and your goal is to graduate, even though you don't know what you want to be, it's okay. Like you can figure that out
Yeah.
either like closer towards your graduation or after you graduate, right?
Yeah. No, you can't figure it out after you graduate.
Okay.
You have to figure it out like a year before you graduate. Because again,
Okay.
just like you have to apply to medical school a year before you actually get in, you have to apply to residency a little less than a year before
Uh-huh.
you actually get in.
So you've got 3 years to figure out what you want to specialize in.
Hmm.
And then you figure it out. Your last year, you do the medical school, and then you go into and then you've got that whole process of applying for residency. And then now, do you have like a 10-year goal? Like after 10 years from today, do you know where you want to
Hmm.
be?
10 years from today. So that's like after I finish residency.
Hmm.
Um, so I am doing the Health Professions Scholarship Program, which is a
Uh-huh.
scholarship program through the military.
Uh-huh.
Um, and so I know what I will be doing is I will be serving as a physician in the Air
Uh-huh.
Force.
Okay.
Um, and so that would be my goal, which is kind of like a default goal, I guess,
Yeah.
because that's just what's going to end up happening. But I think like I hope to be working in a job where I'm happy with like really great coworkers and like serving a mission that's meaningful. So
Hmm.
maybe those are things that I don't have as much control over, but that's the dream.
Yeah, yeah. So that's the vision that you have for your future.
Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty cool, Miki. Now, do you have any advice for people that might be thinking about going to medical school, or maybe they graduated from college or they haven't graduated from college yet and they're thinking about it?
Hmm.
Can you give them some advice?
I think a lot of people romanticize or idealize the path in doing anything, right? So like some people, like young kids that want to go into medicine, like idealize being a doctor. Or
Yeah.
if you want to become a musician, like you idealize that. And it's like you don't have a very realistic picture of what the everyday looks like when you're just starting off, because that goal is like so far ahead that like you're not even focused on the everyday at that point. You're focused on like, oh, but being a doctor will allow me to be like a respected um, person in the community, or like, you can be an expert in the field, like whatever. And you think about all these like big beautiful things, but you don't think about the little things. So I think that it's really important to seek out mentors, whether that's like going to your local hospital and volunteering, or like finding a family friend, or even someone that's just like a few steps ahead of you. So like if you're in high school, find someone in college that's like a science major that wants to go to medical school. Or if you're in college, like find someone that's in medical school, like someone that's one step above you, so that you can get a better idea of what the everyday looks like. And I think it's really important to explore those things before you make big decisions, because you might like hate it. And that's the worst, is like when you don't even realize that you're going to hate it before you, like after you go in, you
Yeah.
realize that. And it's like, wow, you did all that work and you don't even love what you do. So
Yeah.
I think that's super important to explore the field and not just like blindly go into anything. So be intentional about every step of your journey.
And do you have an like an do you know your why? Like, why do you want to be a doctor? Do you know why? Like, what's your why? What's your overwhelming why? For example, I'm trying to
Yeah.
figure that out. So I've got this YouTube channel, and we're doing the interview for my YouTube
Hmm.
channel,
Hmm.
and I am in the process of figuring out my why. Why do I want to do this? Why do I want to become a better storyteller? I'm reading
Hmm.
all these books. So I've got this, YouTube secrets. I've got this 1 million followers. I'm reading these crushing YouTube. I've got the YouTube formula, and that's
Hmm.
the first thing they all say is, what's your why? And of course, I'm figuring that out, but let me ask you, what is your why for wanting to become a doctor?
Um, I think I'm also still trying to figure that out.
Uh-huh.
Um, I think a small part of it is that I felt like as a nurse that I had a big impact and I got to know my patients, but I still had a lot of questions. So like going back to medical school is allowing me to find those answers,
Hmm.
to understand the human body better. And I think that's really important. I think med school has challenged me to find my own answers as far as like learning about health and
Hmm.
illness, and like
Hmm.
learning how to ask hard questions and then answer them.
Hmm.
So I think that's a part of it. I think that um, I feel like I have a pretty good idea for myself what it means to be healthy. And obviously,
Hmm.
like, I'm not perfect. I'm working towards that every day. And like, some weeks are better than others. And like, sometimes I'm way too stressed out. But I, I think I have a pretty good idea of what it means to be healthy and happy. And I'm working towards that. So it would be really great to be in a place where I can help other people work towards that too. Um, And I think that gets back to like the foundations of like healthy eating and
Hmm.
exercise and like sleep and like um, stress management. I think those things like at the like are like foundational concepts that a lot of Americans like just they don't know. They've never been taught that. So I think it would be really cool to be a part of that education for my future patients.
Yeah, I remember one day we had that conversation and we were talking, and you told me that most of the people in the hospital, it's because of their lifestyle choices. You mentioned that to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think that America has a health problem, you know, like
Hmm.
we, I think we value convenience over health,
Hmm.
and, that leads to chronic illness like heart disease, obesity, diabetes, high blood pressure, things like that. So, you know, although it's not just your like diet or it's
Yeah,
not just your exercise, it's you can't ever like point it back to one thing.
yeah,
I think all of those things play a role.
yeah. So
Yeah.
so you're more likely to be healthy if you eat good foods, exercise, get the sleep that you need. You're more likely to be healthy when you're older, right?
Yeah, of
and
course.
and of course there are like I was shocked this morning. There's a YouTube channel that I follow called Eamon and Beck,
Hmm.
and I love their stuff. It's really great. They did van life, and they traveled around the world in a van, and now they bought a cabin in Canada. And I love their stuff, but they're young, and I was just so shocked that her video this morning, and she discovered she had breast cancer, and she eats very healthy. Like, I think they're vegan. They exercise every day, and she's just one of those people that I guess it's not lifestyle related.
Yeah, so obviously not everything is lifestyle related, and
Yeah,
there are some things that are more genetically linked, like breast cancer is one of those that like if you have it in your family or if you have the genes for it, like they're called BRCA1 and 2 are like one
yeah,
some of like the main genes associated with breast cancer.
yeah,
If you have that, your likelihood of having cancer is going to be a lot higher too.
yeah,
So whether you eat healthy and exercise and all that stuff, like you might still get breast cancer,
yeah, yeah,
right? But
yeah,
if you're like, I still think it's important to be healthy because if you find out you have breast cancer and you're healthy, then the likelihood of you being able to tolerate any type of surgery,
yeah,
chemotherapy, radiation, like your body at baseline is already a lot stronger,
yeah,
right? So especially if you're younger, like and you're healthy, you're going to be able to tolerate those things better.
yeah, yeah,
But it's complicated
yeah,
because also, like if you catch the cancer later, there are a
yeah,
lot more complications. So there are so many parts to it. You
yeah,
can't just say like, oh, if you're healthy, you're gonna be okay. Like I don't think it's that simple.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So now, um, do you have any like last words that you'd like to say to future doctors that are aspiring to go into medical school and be in your spot where you are today?
Um, I would just say I think it's like I said earlier, it's really important to find mentors that are willing to be real with you. And I think it's really important to have an understanding of America's healthcare system. You know, I think that medicine is so much more than just understanding the human body and like treating someone. It's you have to understand the system that it belongs to, like for better or for worse. So it's very important to understand insurance and like how hospitals work and, you know, all of the other people that are working towards this similar goal of like helping patients get better. And I think that even when days are hard and things get stressful, that you should enjoy your everyday because life is still happening. That's hard though. Like I struggle with that one a lot.
Well, Mickey, I really appreciate you and getting to interview you for my YouTube channel. I think it's going to be great. And
Thank you.
also, I'm going to try to put this out to Time Warner Cable that has this public access channel. I'll try to put it on there too. And hopefully it'll help some people out there that are wanting to go to medical school and thinking about it. I really appreciate you. And you know what?
Yeah.
It's great to learn about this from you, my daughter, because I never knew some of this stuff, Miki, it was a wonderful getting to talk to you and interview. And I hope that this interview is helpful to people out there thinking about going into medical school or even the pre-med program. It was a very special interview for me, getting to hear about your goals and the processes that you went through to achieve those goals all on your own. It makes me so proud. Guys, thanks for watching. Please remember to hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, leave a comment below. Let me know what you think about. Let me know what interviews you'd like to listen to in the future. And I'll see you on the next episode.